Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Awesome Wholesaler Experience podcast, where we look into the many facets of the job, the career, and the lifestyle of investment and insurance product wholesaling. I'm your host, the creator of the Awesome Wholesaler Experience, and yours truly, Awesome Mike. Hey, guys and gals. Today we have a terrific guest on the show. Let me just get right into it. As the founder of Torch Consulting, located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Mr. Brian Bosley is a highly sought-after performance coach, trainer, and keynote speaker with more than 23 years of experience. Now, his coaching expertise ranges from the development of leadership teams and C-suite individuals for multi-million-dollar companies, all the way down to helping individual professionals and entrepreneurs to expand and grow their businesses and their lives. Now, Brian specializes in the financial services industry, where he provides private coaching, group training, and group keynote presentations for thousands of executives and professionals each year. He is the creator of the Torch Power Pipeline System and the revolutionary One More Goal Achievement System. Now, Brian somehow graduated with the Bachelor's of Science degree in Business Administration way back in 1991 from Central Michigan University. Like, that's hard, Brian. Where he was a Golden Key National Honor Society member. Now, before you judge him, he also was a member of the infamous CMU rugby team. Brian loves to read and color. Well, at least underline at least. He spends a lot of time outdoors, and he's a diehard follower of the absolutely pathetic University of Michigan football team. I've had my heart broken many times over that team as well. He is a native Michigander, we call it. So born and raised here in Michigan. He's a very proud father of two and a bonus dad to three incredible children. Brian Bosley, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being on. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great too. Thanks for being a good sport about my color commentary.
That's perfectly fine. I'm suffered many days after Michigan losses in football and basketball, so my skin is thick.
Yeah, it has to be up here, not only for the weather, but for the sports teams. I mean, it's the Red Wings were my only hope, and that's been it's been pretty tough pickings lately as well.
Sure.
Hey, I really enjoyed learning about you, meeting you, and I actually met you virtually many years ago. A guy named Tom Smith handed me some propaganda, looked like it was straight out of the Soviet Union, called Torch Consulting. And much respect to my former brothers in the Soviet Union. But it was interesting to have that guru out there and to finally come full circle, find you online. And I didn't go looking for you, but I found you from some of these posts that you put out there. And they're pretty amazing. Wholesalers, financial advisors, check them out online on LinkedIn. He's got a ton of content. One of them in particular, though, you mentioned to fill your life with adventures, not things. I think it was some Greek philosopher, by the way, that said this.
Yeah.
But basically, to have stories to tell, not things to show. Brian, tell us your most interesting story, please.
Oh boy, I've got a lot of those. Playing rugby for 7 seasons. I'm just going to start off and kind of share with you where I come from. Like my probably the biggest impetus to the person I've become was something that happened November 4th of 1971. My father passed away when I was 4.5 years old, and left my mother with 5 children. I'm the youngest of 5. And even though that may not be the most interesting story, that right there, Mike, got me to the point where I learned a couple of things through the process. I watched my mother take 5 kids and raise them into being wonderful adults now. And that right there was such an incredible honor to be a part of her family, a part of her brood all those years, and see the strength that this woman had and still has to this day. She's 83 now, and has she's a spitfire. And that's the most interesting thing that's ever happened to me, in the sense that it changed the direction of my life, and I want to say for the better. I wish my father never would have passed away, but at the same time, the beauty that came out of that, by being able to watch my mother step up to the plate and just be an incredible human, has made me the person I am today. So interesting or not, that's kind of the biggest impetus of the man I am today. So.
Dude, that's awesome. And thanks for sharing that. And rest in peace, Pops. I'm sure that he is extremely proud of the man that you have become. And I'm probably pretty sure he's proud of his former wife, your mother,
Mm-hmm.
for stepping up and getting it done. I was going to ask you who your parent or who your idols or heroes or mentors were as a kid growing up. Obviously, it's your mother. You mentioned.
Well,
Go ahead.
I could say this too. When you're looking at heroes and mentors growing up, one of the things I always say is that my mother gave me the ability to speak from the heart. She's very straightforward. She's very honest. So she gave me that strength, where my dad gave me the ability to do it from a stage. My dad was a country singer. So when he passed away, he was actually in the midst of cutting an album with Johnny Cash, or doing a song together. Johnny Cash liked a specific song that my dad wrote. So he was up and comer, and it would have taken off. So I kind of got that. Even though my dad died when I was 4.5, he's still a mentor and a hero to me, because he gave me the ability to sit in front of a crowd and woo an audience, so to speak. And one other person who was a hero of mine was my oldest brother, Bubba. His name was John. He taught me to read at a young age, and he kind of helped me and put me under his wing when, after my dad died, and really was a great male role model for me.
That was my next question is when did you begin to read? So you just answered that. Bubba, big brother Bubba, slapped a comic book or maybe War and Peace in front of you. How did he get a kid to start reading? That's like impossible nowadays, unless you chain him to the door.
Well, you know what? My brother is an avid reader to this day. And so he read so often. He actually taught me how to read out of the newspaper. That was the first thing I read, was a newspaper, for some reason. But he was just so close to me, and he wanted me to become an avid reader like he is. And it just took off from there. And probably the greatest thing anybody's ever given me was the ability to love the written word, because I love to read.
Yeah, that's awesome. You and I in the pre-show, we were talking about, and maybe it was in the beginning of the recording, but essentially we were talking about Tom Smith. And
Yep.
Tom Smith was a great mentor of mine. In fact, I was an advisor, and I actually looked to him for mentorship. And the first thing he told me to do was to get a couple of books. And I was like, what are you talking about, books? I need to learn how to make money. And so it's very interesting, the influence that somebody can have, and kind of, not everybody does it, but if you can become in love with books, it is a wonderful relationship to have, isn't it?
Oh, certainly is. And, I always tell me that I don't pick the books, they pick me. At the right time, when the book comes along, and it's just, you just have that. I love the synergy not synergy, just the ability to get up in the morning and for an hour and sit in my chair in my office and just read by the light and have the candle going and some background music. It's the best way to start my day.
So going with that, like, who do you like? Now, a lot of these guys that are on the call are go-getters. I call them, alpha male nerds, because a lot of them are very smart. They want to get after it and they're not dumb. They're not dumb guys. Most of the guys that are on here are college graduates, post degrees, designations, etc. You know them.
Yeah.
What should they read? What would you recommend that they read to kind of nourish themselves or motivate themselves?
Well, I can tell you my top books are, I love Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, and The Fountainhead. I loved The Fountainhead because it taught me that I can be my own person, do things the way I believe they should be done, and don't compromise my principles. So that's probably one of my all-time favorite books. I'll tell you a book that I read last year or 2 years ago, and I've read it 4 times now, is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Phenomenal book. I really enjoyed that book a great deal. But the book that really got me to start my business is Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. And it's a short fiction about a seagull, an actual bird, that he doesn't want to just be, eating fish and flying at low levels and hanging around boats. He wants to soar and be the fastest seagull and go the highest. And he gets ostracized by his community for it, and how he overcomes that. It's just a cool little fictional story that was one of the impetuses to me starting my business in 1996, was after reading that book.
Wow. Very interesting. I see the Strengths Finder 2.0 behind you.
Yeah, that's somewhere here. Yep.
Yeah, I see it.
It's up there.
So tell us, it's going to give you your five strengths that you're the strongest in. Do you remember what yours are?
Well, I don't have to remember because I have it right here. I'll just look, because I know I wrote them down in here. So If you got a second here, I can tell you. The crazy thing is this morning, not only did Michigan lose last night, but I woke up this morning and I stepped on my glasses and broke them. So these are my old ones. So it's hard. I can't really read with these. I can barely read the words. So I can't.
What do you think your biggest strength is?
I know one of them was connector. I know that. I think that was one of them for sure. And the other one was, is it intellectualizer, or the one that likes to learn? That was one of them. So I don't know if that was the actual term, but that was one of them. And I think that's probably my biggest. I'm a curious person. I just love to, sit here and watch the birds outside and try to learn something about how they communicate and how they cohabitate. And how can I learn that, take that idea and make my life better or somebody else's life better. So I think that was one of them, whatever it is where you're just constantly wanting to learn.
Yeah. And I think it's intuitive. Yeah.
And maybe it's intuitive. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some interesting things. I think that all the wholesalers that are out there, if they haven't done it, it's a great little exercise. That book's, I don't think it's $40, and there's a little quiz in there, and it gives you your top 5 strengths. And then it talks about how to talk to someone with those strengths and how to talk to someone with the other 31, I guess was 36 total strengths over there. It's a great little book, though. I encourage
it's wonderful.
I grabbed this book here. That's what I'm reading nowadays too. Can you see with the glare there?
I can't. Emerson, yeah.
Emerson.
Essays, yeah.
Emerson,
oh, okay.
Emerson. Yeah, Ralph, it's really good.
Yeah.
I think you would like it. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later in the show, but a lot of the writings and a lot of the things that you quote are very stoic. They're like, what I would call old school Greek, Roman, something that's almost as old as we are, kind of stuff, back
right.
in the day, kind of thing. And did you get that from somewhere? Did you get that from your mother? Or did you get that from being the youngest and not having to fight for scraps at the table, or where'd that come from?
That's a good question. I think number one, my brother teaching me how to read was obviously me kind of reading the classics and things like that when I was younger kind of helped. But one of my mentors when I was with American Express or Financial Advisors was a gentleman by the name of John Hance out of Detroit. And I don't know if you know John. He mentored where he was my group vice president for years, and he really kind of inspired me into more of the Ayn Rand and the objectivism and things like that. But the book, The Obstacle is the Way, is about Stoicism. That is about the philosophy of Stoicism. So that is, as of late, I've been doing a lot more reading and learning and writing and posting about Stoicism, or at least Stoic quotes.
Yeah, it has become popular. I really think, I don't know if he did it, but Tim Ferriss had a big play, and his reach is pretty wide, and Ryan benefited from that from the book. Of course, I know John Hance. John Hance was he still is a legend in this area, in these parts. Not always good.
Not always good.
He's on the bell curve fringe. Either you love him or you're looking for him, and not in a good way. And he's not hiding, but he has some terrific things. In fact, it's the lineage. Tom Smith was one of his, guys, and I became one of Tom Smith's guys. I actually started at American Express in '99. So this was after Hansen had left American Express and started his own shop. But I've called on them for years. As a wholesaler, I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, with them for the different firms over the years. Yeah, it's an interesting firm for sure, but definitely entrepreneurial, spirited, and a proponent of the Ayn Rand experience. I would call it that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, so that kind of tells us how you got into the business. 96. You start Torch Consulting. Actually, let's want to just take one step back. Just before then, you were out digging ditches.
Yeah,
pounding rocks and digging ditches. Why in the world would you leave that to become an MX advisor?
Well, the job at digging ditches was on Mackinac Island, which is just one giant rock. I just did that in college. Then I went into bartending and bartended for a couple of years. And then once I graduated, I went to Ameriprise, or American IDS back then, financial services. So I couldn't dig ditches all my life, Mike. My back wouldn't handle it.
Yeah, some people get caught in that trap. So were you always an academic? Were you always looking for it? And were you a part of the recruiting reach of the Hance Group? Or were you a part of that American Express Financial Advisors recruiting reach?
No, I was an advisor, obviously, in Lansing, or Okemos, Michigan, then went to Detroit, and I was a manager under John. So John promoted me into management, and So I did all just, I ran the Livonia office in Livonia, Michigan. And that was kind of my claim to fame, is we had a really good year when I first became a manager there.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So how'd you get started in it? How'd you get licensed? I mean, what was the attraction to it? There's so many things you could have done in the mid '90s.
yeah.
How'd you get into financial services?
I graduated from CMU, as you said, and went to Lansing and lived with my sister. She and my brother-in-law had bought a house there and were having their first baby. And I saw it in the paper, IDS hiring. I went and interviewed with a man like Mark Chucci out of Okemos, Michigan, and he hired me. And I can tell you though, I think we had 29 advisors in the Okemos, Michigan office. In the first 9 months, I was number 29. I was the bottom of the bottom. And I read a quote that I've heard many times, and it turned my life around. It was, it's never crowded along the extra mile. And what that meant to me is, because I was number 29 out of 29, I was getting a lot of scrutiny. Is he going to make it? And everybody wanted to sit in my appointments and change how I was doing things. And I hated that. I like autonomy, and I wasn't getting it. And so I decided, if I'm gonna want people to leave me alone and just let me do my thing, I better be darn good at what I do. So it just became extremely focused at that point on selling and in leadership and marketing and things like that. So that was kind of like, all right, get off your butt and now be the man you can be and do it in this job. So
That's very interesting. Mark Tucci, that's a name out of my Rolodex past. He and Pat Bomarito were very inspirational to me. And I've had, many great conversations with those guys along the road. In fact, Mark's a big fisherman, and he likes to go to Florida and fish for those big old bass. He doesn't like the little shorties up here in Michigan, he says. So yeah, he's a good guy. I know exactly who you're talking about. A lot of our guests on the show, or excuse me, the audience would know them as well. So you wanted the autonomy, and did that lead you to actually leave American Express Financial Advisors and start your own business?
It did. I was sitting in a management meeting on a Friday afternoon. We had every Friday, and John always led the talk. And I looked around and I said, I am just a sheep. And I said, I don't want to be a sheep anymore. And that was probably September, I'm going to say. And I went to deer camp November, 14th, 15th of that year. And when I was there, I decided that I was going to leave. So I got back from deer camp on the 19th, went into my office and cleared it out, left a note saying, basically, I quit. And that was the last I knew I had to cut ties quickly, or I would never cut ties, and I'd still be there today. Great company. And I had a lot of respect for John and the people, Tom Smith, et cetera, who were part of the team with me. But it just wasn't my place. So I'm not a corporate guy.
Yeah. So you made the decision, and then you took massive action very quickly. Would you recommend that people do that? Or would you recommend that they maybe be a little more thoughtful and maybe make a better plan? What's your opinion on that?
I would say I would never recommend it to anybody to do it that way. And honestly, that was almost 23 years ago. It'll be 22 and 23 years this fall. That's my biggest regret, is how I left. It still haunts me. Like, I wish I would have done it differently. I did know, being I was 29 years old, fairly not gullible, but moldable. And I knew that if I tried to leave in a slower process, John would convince me to stay, or somebody would, and I'd still be there. And I just knew that it just wasn't the right fit for me. That's all,
Yeah, that is the point I was asking and really looking for clarity on. Was there's a balance, or there's kind of a gap between preparation and action. And a lot of times what I'm finding, even in my own personal travel, is that the better I get at preparation and analysis and smarter I get about it, the less likely I am to actually do it. Because to go out on your own, to make these huge changes, you kind of got to be a little crazy. You kind of got to be a little ignorant about the pain and the suffering. And, oh my gosh, I thought it would be easier, but now you're working twice as long. You got nobody there to really encourage you. Everybody wants to see you fail, because if you succeed, that's going to invalidate their fear-based reasons to stay. It is really daunting. So I congratulate you on that effort. And I also, I'm trying to employ it myself in every part of my life, is to get it to where it's good enough, and then fire, take the shot and do that.
Well, I did a little bit of ready, fire, aim back then. So I should have aimed a little more at the time, but it all
Interestingly
worked
enough,
out well.
do you have any ghosts or any bridges that you maybe would have liked to have left in better repair, and can you go back now?
Yeah, at the time, I really regretted the way I left John and Mike Reed, who was my direct manager, and I really had a lot of respect and still do for Mike. Well, I've reached out to John a couple of times since then, and we've talked. I was supposed to go down there and see him several years ago, and I couldn't make it to Detroit, so he was very open about that. And I ran into Mike Reed at like Starbucks in Lansing. I was meeting a client, and he was sitting. And I looked at it, and this was maybe 15 years after I left, and I walked over to him, and so he stayed. We had a cup of coffee together and chatted. And we ran into each other again in East Grand Rapids here at at the ice cream shop just a couple blocks from my house. So I think the bridges have been repaired. Is my camera shaking a bit, Mike?
No, you're fine.
Okay, I keep bumping it.
Yeah, you're fine, and that's great though to hear that. And I know Mike Reed very well as well. And those guys are a unique band of brothers for sure. Hey, Brian, tell us about Torch Consulting. First of all, where'd you come up with the name Torch? Torch sounds to me like some villagers are going to run around and you're going to set my grass hut on fire. I'm supposed that you're going to say you're going to lead the way. But being from Michigan, in fact, the west coast of Michigan, I figured maybe Lighthouse Consulting or something like that. But tell us about Torch, how you got it off the ground, and why you chose that name and mantra.
Well, when I started in '96, it was called Bannon Enterprise, Bannon, and it was after a character in a book called Calumet K, which is one of my top 5 books as well. And his name was Charlie Bannon. And I didn't have a name yet. This was probably a week after I left Ameriprise or IDS, American Express, and my girlfriend walked in my apartment. And she said, "How you doing, Charlie Bannon?" Because I reminded her of the character from the book, and I just said, "Boom, that's the name." And then I changed it 16 years ago because people were always Bannon band. It didn't really roll off the tongue very easily. So I changed it. I think it was 16 years ago to Torch Consulting, and it's out of Atlas Shrugged. Wyatt's torch. It's a torch that when the world is kind of collapsing, this oil field from Wyatt's oil field, his torch keeps burning, and that stuck with me. Most everything I've ever named, whether it's been an animal or whatever, has come from a book.
Yeah, that's a great story behind it. That's a great way to do it. Some of the stories that you've kind of liked or even shared on social media have been terrific. One of them in particular, it talks about identifying who you are, and exactly the question to ask yourself is which 3 words best describe you as an individual. Can you give us the 3 words that best describe Brian as an individual? And then how can a wholesaler or financial advisor use that question?
Well, it's going to be more than 3 words. It's going to be 3 sentences. Walk, talk, and eat junior mints. And that symbolizes me more than anything else does. And I can tell you the story behind that if you'd like to hear it. But that's what I live that mantra. I teach my children that mantra, and I coach all of my clients that mantra. And if you'd like to hear, I can tell you where it came from.
Yeah, please.
In 1990, well, the year I left Ameriprise or American Express, it was the summer of that year in July, I believe. And I was living in Detroit. My uncle was having his 60th birthday party here in Grand Rapids. And I came over and drove over. My mother was down, my sisters, and my nephew was there. He was 3 years old. His name was Keen. And he was a little 3-year-old kid. And we were in the Amway Grand Plaza. I'm going to say maybe the 10th floor, and he was running and jumping against the glass. And my nephew was. And I knew the laws of physics dictate he's not going through that glass. But I was watching my mother, who I told you is very straightforward, watch him. And I knew she was going to get up from there and, grab him by the hair or something. So I grabbed him. I took him downstairs, Mike. And we went down to the lobby and we went to the little store at the Amway Grand Plaza. And I bought him a box of Junior Mints. And we were walking, holding hands through the lobby and talking. He looked at me and goes, Uncle Brian, life is all about walking, talking, and eating Junior Mints, isn't it? And I said, it is. And what that meant to me, Mike, is walking symbolizes every day giving your best, making progress, moving forward. Talking symbolizes communication and love and friendship and kinship. And eating Junior Mints means sucking the marrow out of life every day, just enjoying the moments. So that's a symbol of mine. In fact, above my desk, across from my desk in my office here, I have a big poster that says that frame. This is walking, talking, eating Junior Mints.
One of my favorite blogs too. It's awesome. Awesome stuff. So yeah, thanks to Keen. What's Keen up to nowadays?
He lives in Traverse City, and he's 26 now, and 26, 27. He works for Culligan Water up in Traverse City.
Nice.
So.
I'm going to talk to him and tell him a word. It's called royalties.
my sister has asked that before.
So tell us then, if you would, about the power pipeline system and how you've helped financial advisors and wholesalers to employ that into their business.
Okay. Well, going back to the three rules: give your best, show love and respect, and have fun. That's my walk, talk, eat, dream. So I teach every one of my clients to do that. So how do you use that mantra to make money? Is like for the power pipeline system. What that is it's a system designed for advisors, financial advisors, or any salesperson to have a strong pipeline that consistently feeds their business. We talk so much about referrals and centers of influence, and those are all great. But the problem with all of those is most advisors don't have them systematized. They're not, they don't have a consistent program or platform. And this program does that. It gives them a blueprint that says, here you go. If you do these steps, you're going to be successful off of referrals and centers of influence. So that's really what the Power Pipeline program is all designed to do.
You've got me salivating over here. I'm sure that the audience members would love to peek inside a little bit more behind the curtain. Can you give us a little nugget of how to set a system like that up for a wholesaler or financial advisor?
You bet. Well, the first thing is like if I was to talk to a financial advisor or a wholesaler, I would look at their practice, look at their business, and determine, okay, what do you want to get out of it? So do you want 5 referrals a month? Do you want 5 referrals a year? Or clients a month? Do you want 5 new clients a year? What are you looking to do? Then I'll take a small portion of that and say, okay, well, to do that, you need to make these many calls to centers of influence. Here's a great one that most people don't think of that I love to share this with advisors is, there's always the centers of influence, the estate planning attorney, the CPA, mortgage lenders, realtors. But the number one best source of referrals for an advisor, if they do it right, is a hairstylist. Never would think that. And that's one of the things I look at is why do you, you have a CPA, you have an estate planning attorney, but you don't have these other ones. And because for a couple of reasons. Number one is when a person's getting their hair done, they are, number one, your neck is such an exposed and it's a sensitive area. You trust that person behind you. And you ask a lot of questions, and they are very well respected to their clients. So, and most people are sitting there you and I aren't, but a lot of people are sitting there for 45 minutes getting their haircut. And having the ability to do good networking relationships with the hairstylist or an owner of a salon, very powerful for advisors. Another one is dentists. Dentists and chiropractors are great.
Before you move off of the hairstylist, we got to address a couple of things. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just listening to this show and not watching on YouTube, let me inform you that if there was one more shaved head bald guy in the room, we would be called the Blue Man Group. Brian and I are definitely, his last name is Bosley. Isn't that some kind of a hair replacement company or whatever? We're not in the hair club anymore, but we definitely are follically challenged. So to mention hairstylists as a great center of influence is not only very brave, but also very intuitive. Yeah, you're right, Brian. I've been bicking mine since about 19 years of age, and I just started on the sides here and just kept going up as the years went by. And eventually, my last 4 hair, I think one of them fell out. And I said, no, you don't. I took them all down. Reminds me of a phrase that I learned from Bob Ritchie. You may or may not know who Bob Ritchie is, but Bob Ritchie helped me come up with this phrase, and it's this. Being bald is great. Going bald sucks.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Bob Ritchie
so apropos.
Yeah, Bob Ritchie, by the way, is Kid Rock.
Kid Rock, that's right.
Yeah, and the way I got it is, he married Pamela Anderson 5 different ceremonies. And he was being interviewed on TMZ or something like that, probably MTV or something. They said, why'd you do that? He said, well, you got her family, my family, West Coast, Detroit media, all this stuff. And then he says, by the way, getting married is great. Being married sucks. I've been using that joke for a while now, but I digress. Hey, let's talk about the changes you've seen. You've been coaching for a long time. You've been an advisor. You've been in the business a long time. You've seen technology. In fact, you started back in the 1900s, believe it. And you've seen things changing. What are the biggest changes that you've seen? And and how do you think that's going as far as the development of financial advice, of consulting, and even of sales, like as a wholesaler or financial advisor would approach?
I think the biggest change I've seen is it takes less thick skin today to survive in the industry than it did back in the 1900s. I think, which is nothing bad necessarily, but you don't see a lot of people cold calling anymore, or knocking on doors, or going the hard way. And I think that's a lost art. I hated doing it, but it made my skin a lot thicker. It gave me emotional competency that I never would have had, and I think that's missing right now. So when I work with an advisor, a lot of times I noticed there's a different, I guess, mindset. It definitely is it, but a difference in their emotional competency. And so what I hear a lot now, which I didn't hear back then, is I need to be challenged, Brian. I mean, my job, my business, my practice, my career, it's on autopilot. I'm making more money than I ever thought. I'm just not challenged anymore. Back in the day when you were cold calling 300 dials a day or whatever it might be, you were challenged every single time you picked that phone up. And I think that's one thing I've really noticed, Mike, is that we have to make sure these advisors are constantly being intellectually stimulated and challenged on a consistent basis, or they're going to stagnate.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now, do you think that plays into this, call it low attention span, this technology addiction, that because everything is so readily available and accessible that we've lost that hunger?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think because we don't have to do the work anymore that we had to do back then. I mean, in other areas we do, but in some of these areas, like you doing research on me and me doing research on you. I mean, back in the day, where would we have done that? Now we just get on the internet, go to LinkedIn, go to your website, go to Facebook, and so there's a lot. It's easier to get to where you want to go today. I think the fact is that, like I said, it's not challenging enough for most people. And people who get in this industry, the financial services industry, wholesale, they are people who are intellectually strong people. They're not dummies. So these people, they need to feed their brains consistently and give themselves that. There's a great little story, and I want to share it. I love it. Is the story of how they used to transport cod from the East Coast to the West Coast, and they used to put them in these big tanks and trains, on semis, and these big tanks full of seawater or salt water, and they would take the cod from the East Coast to ship it to the West Coast. When they would get to the West Coast, they noticed that the cod were dead, or the ones that were alive, their muscles had atrophied so much that they weren't even edible anymore. And they couldn't figure out why that was happening. And so finally, some engineer or someone in the company said, well, what's one thing is they're not being challenged on this trip. They're just going. And so he said, what's a challenge to a cod? Well, the natural predator to a cod is a catfish. So what they did is they did the same thing they did before. They put cod in this big tank of salt water, and they put a few catfish in there. And they shipped them across the country. And when they got there, the catfish ate a couple of them, but a very small amount. But all the cod that survived were extremely strong. They were better than they were, healthier than when they left the East Coast, because they were being challenged the entire time by these catfish. They were being chased, and they had to keep their head on a swivel. And that right there is, we all need to have a catfish in our life, something that keeps us on our toes, keeps us motivated, keeps us inspired, and keeps us moving forward. And I think that's what we're missing right now, is that we don't have enough catfish out there in the field.
How can a wholesaler or a financial advisor get one? Would that be to hire a coach, an accountability partner of some sort?
Yeah, it's a three-step process. It's set your goals, have a scorecard that you can keep them, and then have an accountability system. And so that's one thing. Is if somebody were to talk to me, that's the first thing I would say is we need to have a 3-year, a 1-year, and a 12-week goal. And we set those down, and we say, okay, now what are your lead measurements? Now, to get to that goal, what do you have to do? What are your activities? We track that, extensively. And then I say, well, how are you going to hold yourself accountable? And we put an accountability system that I call the A team, accountability team, in place where they can't really get away from what they committed to doing. So yeah, hiring a coach, or that's the best way to do it. I think, or having somebody, a mentor, consultant, or a coach that they can go to and say, help me do this. I mean, the bottom line is they're all intelligent, successful people, but I don't do my own brain surgery. I don't cut my own hair. Well, I do cut my own hair now, but it's having somebody there to help you walk through the process. And even though I've been coaching for 20 some years, I still hire coaches and consultants to keep me in line at times. So
love it. The A team. I pity the fool.
A-team. I pity the fool.
We all need a Mr. T chasing us down. Now,
that's right.
I do a little presentation between, it's a difference between discipline being self-discipline and what I call self-imposed discipline. Very few people have self-discipline over the long haul.
Right.
But everyone can put in place their A-teams, what you call it, their accountability team, which is self-imposed discipline.
That's
the
right.
key. That's why to hire coaches. That's why to make it uncomfortable to let yourself down, or even to put someone else in there that you won't let down, as opposed
Right.
to becoming lazy. Hey, Stoicism is very popular nowadays. We talked about it a little bit earlier, and I want to read off a few of them that I noticed that you kind of liked, and you used your crayon or the ink pen and to underline it there. You eat the crayons, I forget. Okay. Anyways, the first one is to pay what things are worth. And it mentions that the good things in life cost what they cost. And I don't know how to say it properly, and I don't necessarily speak Greek, but it's Diogenes. That was the guy that said it. But what does that mean to you? Pay what things are worth.
To me, it means focusing on the things in life that make me happy. If you look at happiness, 3 things determine a human being's happiness, and 50%. So one of them is DNA. 50% of our happiness is determined by our genes. Our mom and dads, grandmas and grandpas, either we have the happy gene or we don't. That's 50%. And so we can't do anything about that. 10% of our happiness is determined by how much money we make, how pretty we are, how popular we are, where we live, the car we drive, how thin we are, how in shape. That's only 10%. So, and those are the things we almost all focus on: making more money, having a nicer house, having a nicer car, looking prettier, losing weight. When all that together, all of it only adds up to 10% of your happiness, and you can't control that. I mean, you could get a disease tomorrow. We could lose our house tomorrow. The economy could collapse. It's focusing on the 40% that's left that we have total control over, and that is your intentional activities, the things that you do intentionally every day to become a better person. And to me, that's where I pay my time and energy goes to that more than it does to. I don't buy the nicest car. I don't want to have the biggest house. That's just not my style. My money goes, and my time and my energy go into my family, my health, my intellectual business, and helping my clients. And that's what it means. That's spend the money there, or energy, or whatever it might be that you have as a resource.
50%, like
50%.
half of the game is over before we start.
It's over before we start. But just
think, my goodness, that is a revelation, my man.
But think about the 40% we have control
Thanks,
over.
Mom and Dad.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
right.
The 40% that you do have control, and that's a big chunk. I mean, you can do like a 40% is the difference between pass and excellence and failure in most things in life.
You're right.
So that's great that you can. Any more details on what in particular those 40% things would be?
It's things such as it's living intentionally, living consciously, just being aware of how you take care of your mind, your body, your soul, your family, your friends, your finances. It really comes down to living consciously. We go through life so often on autopilot, and we only notice the bad things. You're driving on the highway, you don't notice the other cars until you see a car in an accident. Then you notice that accident because it's a negative, and our minds are programmed to look for danger and negatives. So if we're going through life unconsciously on our own autopilot or so what do you call it? The autopilot, I guess. You're not noticing the good things because you're only noticing the bad things in life. So it's being aware. It's okay. How do I want to live? What relationships do I want to make? How do I want to take care of my body, my mind? And that's really what it comes down to. It's just living intentionally, living your dream.
That's awesome, man. Next one is that the present is all we possess. Yesterday is the past. Tomorrow is the future. Today, though, is a gift. And that's why it's called the present. And that's by a guy named Bill Keene. What does that mean to you? What does the present mean to Brian?
I'll tell you what, it's been the hardest thing I've ever dealt with in my life is trying to live in the present. I've always been a worrier, but the next day, the next meal, whatever it might be in the past, and plus always concerned about my past. Having lost my father at a young age, I think there was always that haunting thing in me that, okay, something's going to happen. Bad's going to happen. And every time there was something good in my life happening, I always was waiting for the shoe to fall, the other shoe to fall. So for me, it means right now, be the best I can be right at this moment. And that really is where the walk, talk, eat, and junior mints, because that's what eat junior mints means. It means being present, living in the moment and enjoying the moment you're in. And I have to stop myself quite a few times during the day and say, what am I doing? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Who am I with? And where am I physically? And that kind of grounds me to go, okay, am I doing what I want to do with the right people? Am I feeling the right way? Am I thinking the right things? That just kind of stops me and says, look at what you're doing right this moment, how you're feeling. And that's what being in the moment and being in the present means.
Do you meditate? I mean, I'm
I
not trying to
have,
say that we look like monks, but do you actively meditate?
you know, Mike, I don't. I have many times, and for about a year, I did it 3 or 4 days a week. And I have it's one of my things to do that I can make myself a better person. Yoga and meditate are on there to start them up again sometime in the future. I
Yeah,
mean,
I've tried, I've tried to. I mean, try is a loose word. I've meditated modestly. What I've found, and this is a secret that you can even try, is jujitsu. Because for that hour and a half that you're on the mat, you're not thinking about anything else except for that other person that's trying to choke you to sleep. And that meditation state where you're freeing your mind from all of the worries of the day is really just a nourishing time. So yoga is cool too. It's more difficult than jujitsu. So, it's not as cool, right? Supposedly.
yeah,
But anyways, that's something you can do. And to help kind of get back into that. Here's the next one. It's only bad dreams. Clear your mind and get a hold on yourself. And as when awakened from sleep and realizing it was only a bad dream upsetting you, wake up and see that what's there is just like those dreams. That's from Marcus Aurelius.
mm-hmm.
How are your dreams?
I dream like a graphic novel. I mean, my dreams are vivid. They're bright, they're bold, and I'm talking my literal dreams. But I ever watched the movie La Bamba
Of
about Richie
course not.
Valens?
I'm from Detroit. No, yeah, of course I have.
Well, I love in there. I think it's his brother who's kind of the troublemaker. He's sitting there. To live is to die, or no, to live is to sleep. To die is to awaken. And to me, that means a lot in the sense that, you know, we walk through life, and I call the masses of people, Mike. If you go to the mall or go anywhere, they look like the zombies from The Walking Dead. You know, people have that kind of dead look, and I call them apologists because they're apologizing for taking up space on the earth. And to me, this is what I love in my career, because I'm able to take a person like that and help them to open up and to live their dreams, you know, and to really live the person they are. And that, to me, that's what that is. If your dreams, the things you desire most in this world, should be attainable to everybody, and they are. It's just a matter of, you know, do you want to feel the pain right now of going through that process? Which, can I expand on something you got us? One thing I think we need to do in order for us to reach our dreams is we have to choose the pain in our lives. See, we go through life, I think, trying to avoid pain at all costs. And that's a very deadly thing to try to avoid, because pain is beautiful. Pain is it's the nourishment of life, because if you don't feel pain, you die, you know, literally. But when a person wants to improve and they want to live their dreams and they want to, you know, move forward in life, what they do is they don't want to, the reason they don't is because they don't want to feel the pain of hard work, the pain of getting up in the morning and going out to work out in the cold, you know, Michigan weather, or they don't want to go through a change of having to maybe lose some friends because they need to make better life choices. So they avoid that pain of change and hard work. And when they do that, what happens is they have the pain of regret down the road, because you only have two options. You choose the pain of hard work right now, or you choose the pain of regret later on. The pain of hard work is beautiful because it's temporary. You know, after a while, that pain goes away. But once you regret not making the choices in your life and going in the direction you want to go, once you feel that pain of regret, it lasts for eternity. It never goes away. And so I think that's part of, you know, my dreams are about really making sure that I'm choosing the right pain every single day. And it better be the pain of hard work and change and grit. Otherwise, the pain of regret's going to catch up, and it's a monster once it catches up to you. Like the way I left American Express, you know, I regret the way I left that. I didn't have the courage to walk out the proper way. And 23 years later, it's still something that it's a pain of regret that I still realize. So I digress.
No, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome. There it was. That was the mother lode of golden value. Two kinds of pains: the pain of hard work or the pain of regret. Choose wisely. Last quote that I'll read off to you that I really enjoyed from your content, Brian. We will face moments when our physical and mental resources feel tapped out. There will be many moments when we will want to achieve something, but it feels as if we face incredibly long odds. In those moments, you have to call on your sisu. Now, sisu is a Finnish concept described as stoic determination, tenacity of purpose, grit, bravery, resilience, and hardiness, and is held by the Finns themselves to express their national character. It is generally considered not to have a literal equivalent in English. A couple of examples. When you're in the middle of a season slump that never seems to end, sisu. When you feel as if you tried everything you can to achieve your goal and you still haven't made it, sisu. We all experience failure, but realize that failure is an event, not your identity, sisu.
I love it.
That's you, brother. You wrote that. It's one of the articles that you wrote in LinkedIn. Where'd you come up with that? How'd you discover that? And how do you use it today?
Beautiful thing is I have two really great friends who live across the street from my house they were born and raised in Finland. They moved over here 10 years ago. So I flew the Finnish flag for years in front of my house. And so I use that word constantly. You know, the best answer to that question is think about a piece of typing paper or pull a piece of paper out of your legal pad, and you fold that piece of paper over one time on itself, it doubles in size, thickness. If you fold it over 3 times, it becomes about as thick as your fingernail. You fold it over 10 times, it's about the thick as the width of my hand. If you fold it over 14 times, it becomes 5'8", somewhere in there. If you fold that piece of paper over 10 times, there we go, I lost you for a minute. When you fold that piece of paper over 50 times, any idea how thick that piece of paper becomes?
As thick as my head? Almost. No, it's got to be some monstrous number.
It's 80% from here to the sun.
Good grief.
So a piece of paper folded over on itself 50 times. And that go back to the sisu is, to me, whenever I'm in a situation like that, where I feel like I'm tapped out, I have no more, and it's insurmountable, I just fold that piece of paper one more time. And that's where the one more philosophy comes from, is teaching a person to do one more. Throw that baseball one more time to your child. Say I love you to your spouse one more time. Just being able to go that one extra step, and then the second step, then the third step. And that's kind of where I got that idea, is being able to fold it, looking at doing things like folding the paper, and just one more thing, man. When I'm tired, just do one more lap around the track or whatever it might be.
Well, my friend, I have a I guess a sober revelation, and I guess a favor I want to ask of you, and it's also a challenge. I've enjoyed reading the 49 articles that you posted on LinkedIn. You haven't done one in 18 months or so. Can you get number 50 out for us?
I can.
Sisu, they're period. Thank you. I look forward to it. I think that you're talented, and I encourage you to continue to share those gifts. Let's talk about the future. Not only are you going to kickstart the Brian Bosley article machine again, sounds great, but what are the visions that you have for the future? Visions for Torch Consulting, visions for your next great victory?
My next great victory is to finish the book I'm writing. And that's a goal this year. And I've been working, that's probably why I haven't been posting as much. I've been writing more for my book lately, and it's called Monkey Trap. So I finished it last year, went to editing, got edited, and I decided it wasn't worthy of what I wanted to put out there. So now I'm adding a lot more to it. And that's my big focus, is to get what I teach my family, I teach myself, and I teach my clients every day. I want to get that out to the masses in a written form. So that's the next direction for me, is that. And quite frankly, most of my clients are around the country. I only have maybe 2 clients in the state of Michigan. And so to talk more literally about the future for me is I want to start working more locally with more Michiganders, or at least Midwesterners. Most of my clients are on the East Coast or West Coast of the country, and I do most of it virtually, all my coaching. But lately, in the last couple of years, I've been doing a little more person-to-person, traveling around the state, and that's really what I want to get back to, more of that, as I'm looking at 52 years of age. And I want to be able to, not retire, but when my son goes to college, I don't want to be flying around. I want to be, living here, maybe buying a place up north and another place up north or something, and just being able to see my clients face to face more.
That's awesome. So you're still getting fulfillment from it. You're still helping the world become a better place by your impact. Financial advisors have a critical role in our society. And it sounds like you're going to continue to do that as long as you're healthy and it's still fun.
I can't imagine I can't imagine not doing it. I mean, this is what I love to do. You
Well,
know,
let me ask you this question. You mentioned before that you kind of are let's just say a pragmatist. And maybe even that's like being nice. You're always looking for the shoe to drop you mentioned.
mhm.
So what keeps you up at night now?
Well, being a teenager or the father of a teenage 16-year-old, that kind of keeps me up at night. And I think probably, Mike, that's probably it. You know, I'm so close to my son. I got a divorce 13 years ago, and I was granted full custody of him when he was 2.5 years old. So I've raised him without his mother for the past, 13 years, um, with the help from a wonderful lady, Hillary, has been a phenomenal role model to him as a mother figure. But I think that's what keeps me up at night, making sure that he becomes the man he's capable of becoming and is happy and grounded in life, because my other kids, my three bonus boys and my daughter, are all adults and out of college now, and they're all doing well financially, but morally, emotionally, relationship wise. So I just want him to be there too. So that's probably what keeps me up the most.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You mentioned kind of bringing it back more local, and you mentioned that you're 52 years old. And I wonder what your opinion is on, what is the opportunity for what I call the new golden years when you're looking at that pre-retirement and then retirement. What opportunities do you see for, call it, our generation?
Well, I think the beauty of it is, I think what our generation can offer to the younger generation is our experience and wisdom. The thing about, there's no generation really that changed more, where the world changed more dramatically than our generation. When you and I went to school, the library was where you did all your research. You had index cards, and not with the computer and the internet and all these social media, we've seen drastic change. So to be able to, use that technology to spread our word to the younger generations about other values that maybe they don't see or share today, that really to me is I think it's an amazing opportunity. And if however it is, but to work with that younger generation and kind of teach them the things that they're not getting, because they don't go out and play like we did. You jump on bikes and build tree forts, so they've missed something in their development. But being able to go back now and teach them that, I think, is a big opportunity for our generation, because we get it.
What about in business? Do you see the same technology and things affecting business? And maybe what would some lessons be that we could teach our proteges in business?
I think in business, the number one is communication. That's one thing I've noticed a great deal in the last 10 years, maybe 15 years, is that's one of my biggest roles, is working with teams, is teaching them how to communicate more effectively, or with salespeople, financial advisors, communicating more effectively with their prospects and clients. Because, quite frankly, I'm a texter. Email, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that's how most of our communication is done now. So I think the opportunity is for us is to teach those of the younger generation, and anybody for that matter, just to communicate more effectively, look in the eye, read body language, empathize more effectively with people. And I think that's where I see in business the opportunity is there, because it is a big gap right now.
Yeah, that actually is like a salmon swimming upstream. Coho salmon here in Michigan, right?
Yeah,
Because more people are trying to systemize in a way that it actually reduces their work. And,
right.
I'm a fan of actually going out, getting on the plane, getting in the car, and sitting down and talking with someone. This medium, this Zoom conferencing, allows me to reach out to people much more conveniently, and it's kind of a bridge. They can see us,
Yes.
I can see you a little bit, but I don't believe it will ever replace being able to be in the same room and hear the same sounds that you're hearing, and to really have the ability to catch all of those nonverbals. So I think technology is a tool that we can use, but it doesn't replace, it adds to, the basis of the communication.
Right. Exactly.
Let's do this, Brian. Let's round third base. And being that we're from Michigan, most people don't even know what third base is anymore because our teams, anyways.
I know it.
There's some decent baseball still around here. Tigers have been okay for the for the fan. But let me ask you a couple of my signature questions here as we round third base and head for home. First one is, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but if you could pick up your phone and on the other end of the phone, there is a 25-year-old Brian Bosley, and you have 5 minutes, what advice would you give to your younger self?
What I would do is, I think I would just tell them, give your best every day, show love, respect, and appreciation for others and yourself, and have fun, smile. When you stop right now and enjoy the world. And I would say, save money, invest now. But that's it. To me, it's. I wish I would have had somebody when I was 25 teach me that. You walk, talk, eat junior mints, and have that philosophy at that age would have been powerful for me. And that's what I would say is, I want you to just give your best, show love and respect, have fun, save money, and realize life's going to work out. You're going to land on your feet. Things are going to be okay. And that would be it.
Yeah. Now I've often been told, hey, Mike, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And my rebuttal though is that my ears are really small and my mouth is really big. So the volume is actually not exactly what you're talking about there. But do you think that you as a 25-year-old would be able to hear that wisdom that you would have just departed?
No. I don't. I mean, it wasn't too many years later that I came up with the idea. It was when I was 29 when the walk and talk and eating junior mints happened in my life. But at 25, no, I was still, young and dumb. And I thought I knew everything already, and you weren't going to tell me anything. And my motto, my goal back then, Mike, was just make money, make money, make money. And, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, that's all I knew. I didn't realize that there's much more out there to be able to offer the world than just make money. So I don't know that I would have been able to hear that at that time.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but it rings true. And they basically said that wisdom is wasted on the old.
Mm-hmm. That is very true. But we're not very old yet.
No. Well, I'm not, at least anyways. Yeah. No, it's age is. In fact, I'll tell you, I have a longer story, which I won't go into in too much depth, but I believe that age is a lie. It's a lie. Somebody fabricated it. If I smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day and drink and eat bad food, how can I age the same in 5 years as someone who's on a clean diet? It doesn't work. Maybe the world has aged, but I haven't. Instead, so I don't believe in age too much. I get a little uncomfortable when people ask me, how old are you, kind of a thing. So here's what I tell them. In fact, you can use this little gift from me to you, Brian. Someone asks you how old you are. You just tell them that you stop keeping track, which I actually try to stop keeping track. And then I say this when they press me. I say, let's just say that I'm closer to 50 than I am to 40. The good news is that's true.
That's true, yeah.
And by the way, it's true for the rest of your life.
Yep.
That's
very true.
Yeah. When I say that to people, they always put me on whatever side of the number that they're on.
Yep.
So if they're over 50, they put me over 50. If they're young, I usually say I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30, but I was giving that to you because you're closer to 50. You get the idea. So that's the thing, to kind of do that without getting cornered in, because whatever somebody asks you how old you are, whatever they say next is negative.
Yeah.
It's, oh my gosh, you look great for being 52. Well,
right.
How about I just look great?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't believe in the age thing. I try not to get trapped into it, but anyways, I digress. Again, we're a couple of digressing middle-aged balding guys here, I see. Okay. Signature question number 2. If you could have a legitimate superpower, Brian, which one would you choose, and what would you do with that superpower?
We talking like a literal superhero superpower?
Whatever you'd like.
I would probably say speed, fast, like the Flash, because I love to be with my mom. I love to be with my kids. I love to be up at my hunting property up north, and it's a 6-hour drive to get there, or a 4-hour drive, or a 2-hour drive to see my daughter. I think if I could snap my fingers and I'm in Traverse City to see my daughter or my mom, or I'm sitting at my deer camp in a matter of seconds, I would love that. I think it's just because you can reach the world more. You know, if you're just fly or either fly or run fast, just to
My
get
man,
places quicker. And
you want to be able to teleport.
yeah, there we go. I like that one better.
Yeah.
Teleport.
Teleportation is what Brian Bosley wants to do. And you would do it to eliminate the downtime. You would want to spend every moment in the moment, not traveling to the moment or from it, is what I'm hearing you say, right?
Exactly.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I've had a couple of guests tell me teleportation, and some of them have even phrased it as in just, private aviation. But, that's a very wise one. We can always make another dollar, but you can't get back the minute.
Amen.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, I want to wrap up here and just, thank you for being on the show today and, for your many years of positive and helpful tips. We all appreciate you and your hard work and do indeed wish you much fortune in success both now and in the future. As we often say on the Awesome Wholesaler Experience podcast, it's about the journey, and we wish you well on yours. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Before we wrap, though, how can we get in touch with you? If someone would like to have you come in and do some torch consulting or help with their pipeline, what's the best way to connect with you?
Email, text, or phone. And my email is brian@torchsuccess.com. And my cell phone number, if you want it, is 616-366-2789. Feel free to call me or text me. And, if somebody just wants to talk to me, I'll always say, I'll give you 30 minutes and we'll just determine whether or not I can help you. And then I don't pressure anybody. I say, if I can help you, here's how. And if they're interested, let's try it out for a month.
That's awesome, Brian. Thank you for that. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in today. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that little bell, and you'll be the first to get each new episode. And if you don't mind, do me a favor and go ahead and share the episode with your connections on social media. What the heck? Go crazy. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Leave a comment. Actually, it does really help, and I do appreciate all of your comments and all of your support. Thanks again, everyone, for listening and for watching. Thanks for supporting the show. And, of course, thanks for being awesome. Good night, everybody.